easier to move into the entertainment industry.
So basically you were, I guess in our world, working for the people and not the administration?
That is.
Just kidding, sorry. I saw no one. Sorry. Just kidding. Are there any little anecdotes or anything funny you'd like to share with us before I start pulling the questions? I know Jose mentioned you worked with people that didn't like you. I don't know if there's any names you want to share.
Yeah, I would tell that.
We probably have the same people.
I did a special for ABC years ago with Joan Collins. And at the same time that year, I was producing and directing the National Emmys. And Joan had just gotten her role on Dynasty. And so the new girl who is now coming into Dynasty was Diane Carroll. And when I did this special with Joan, and it was something that I knew going in I was going to have a problem, because every day I would get a phone call from her boyfriend, manager, asking for more money, or she wasn't going to be well enough to get to the set that day. So we were constantly being blackmailed or having confrontations. It actually got to the point where the last day of shooting, I said, Joan, why don't you pretend you're a professional, I'll pretend I'm a professional. Let's just get through this and finish it. So now it came time where she was going to be on the Emmys as presenters with the girls from Dynasty. And we rehearsed the Emmys, at least from a standpoint of they have to know where their marks are to walk on the stage and off the stage. So it's not complicated at all, but everybody shows up. I got a call from her agent saying Joan wasn't going to show up, but she wanted to be in the middle of the podium when she came up to do her presentation. And I said, no, she's going to be on an end, because the new girl is Diane. And so we're going to put the two regulars, Joan and Linda, on the ends, and then Diane will be in the middle. And he said, I don't think Joan's going to like that. And I said, well, too bad. Especially if she's not coming to rehearsal. So Linda and Diane and I spoke about what's going to happen if Joan tries to take the center of the podium. And this is live going to the East Coast. And Linda came up with, well, if she goes in the middle, I'll just circle around and get to the other end. And I said, perfect solution. So now I staged the three ladies upstage behind the scenery. The announcer says, now the ladies from Dynasty, names their names, and they have a long walk from all the way upstage down to the podium. And I see Joan running while Diane and Linda are walking out there, and Joan gets to the podium and slams her hands on the podium right in the center. Diane comes and stands next to Joan, and Linda circles around off stage, so you can see the scenery in the background of the wings. And anyway, Linda the next morning wrote me and said, and incidentally, Joan had spent $15,000 on a gown or whatever. She was on the screen about 5 seconds. I got off of them as quick as I could and just went to the nominees. But I got a bouquet of flowers from Linda the next day saying, you'll be interested in knowing Joan isn't talking to me on the set today. But there have been a lot of fun incidents like that over the years.
Okay.
No, I think it's interesting. It's do what you love to do, and just find what you love to do and just do it. This like stories with this ego stuff that happens. I had an incident with Faith Dunaway. You know who Faith Dunaway is? She's got a bad rep now in the business because now they call her cuckoo. Oh, you're videotaping that, huh? No, I mean, you're going to meet people who are older than you, who are very seasoned professionals, and they're going to see the newbies, and they're going to be like, whether you're in the same sex or not. I was at the SAG Awards. I'm excited, there's award shows, and I'm at the SAG Awards for Traffic, and I'm talking to the director, Steven Soderbergh, And we're at the USA party. They have different parties at different areas, HBO, So I'm upstairs, and what was so interesting is I'm talking to Stephen, and he said, wow, Jose, you know, isn't it great? Because Stephen won, Benicio had just won, it was a big, you know, oh no, Stephen didn't win. So I was telling Stephen, if he didn't win the SAG Award, something like that, where, yeah, he didn't win. I said, you know what that means? That means you're going to get the Oscar. So I said something like that. We're talking, and then Faye Dunaway comes in and talks, stands right in front of me, facing, you know, Stephen. And I'm looking, and there's a slew of people, because the traffic was a big thing of watching, and they're all staring. But they're going like this, they're talking, you know, but they're all like looking that way, but they're chit-chatting. It's the Hollywood thing that they do. You know, they're like, look, their ears are here, but they're pretending like they're talking, and I'm like, and so we were like the center of attention, and I could feel it. It was like, and all of a sudden, when Faye comes in, I thought, whoa, wow. And so I look, and Stephen says, oh, Faye, this is Jose Yankee. He was in my movie Traffic. She turns around, looks me up and down, and she goes, I don't remember him. and then she kept talking to him, and then she's talking to him, and he says, I'll see you later, Jose. And I said, sure. So everyone has been watching. So I go over to the bar, we'll go to the bar, and I'm just trying to look as cool as possible, you know, and nobody wants to touch me, nobody wants to talk to me, and I'm going like this. And I feel uncomfortable, and I just get up, and I walk down this ramp, and right there, Benicio del Toro had just won for Best Actor, and he comes up with his slew of people all dressed in black. He parts the Black Sea, and all of a sudden he says, Jose! And he hugs me, and he says, you know, I said, congratulations for the SAG Award. He said, no, this is ours, because we knew this was a team effort. We did this. Thank you. And I said, oh, cool. And from that point on, everybody came out taking pictures with me, and you know, trying to say, hey, so that was Benicio, wasn't it? Yeah. Where were you when Faye Dunaway gave me the cold shoulder, you know? But yeah, so that's my Faye Dunaway story.
You have anything to add, Beverly, before we go to questions?
Probably one of the bigger jokes was on me. Like I said, I really wanted to work for employees, for workers. And one of my first assignments at the Directors Guild was to be the note taker for the creative rights negotiations for the contract. And those provisions of the DGA basic agreement are negotiated by director members, not the labor professionals, but it's negotiated by the director members. And on the other side of the table are the heads of the studios. So the head of Paramount and the head of Universal, Sid Sheinberg and Barry Diller, and the really heavyweight folks are on the other side. My job was just to take notes and be silent. But in any event, one of the DGAs, I'm working for artists and employees in my heart. One of the DGA's proposals that year was that they should have a private car and a private driver to and from the set. This was a very serious, this was a serious proposal, and the folks on the other side, since they all had private cars and drivers, treated it seriously. And I'm sitting here like, what's this picture? I thought I was working for workers and maybe limousines to the set, and they had justifications for it, and they didn't get it, but it was a very serious proposal.
Representing the people who needed drivers.
Huh?
Representing the people that needed drivers.
Right.
Two of the most important elements of the Directors Guild negotiations are parking spaces on the lot. And the most important is, for years we've had this, even executives don't get it, is first-class transportation on an airplane to a set.
That is right.
We will not give that up, even for money.
Actors, when we got flown to do a guest star, or to go, to shoot a show, it was mandatory through the union. It was first class, but something happened, and we don't have that anymore. But at least I rack up frequent flyer miles.
All right. You're going to collect the questions? Or to act in a movie.
Was it hard?
Was it hard?
No, I didn't think about it. I just did it. I think what happened years later was I started thinking too much. Don't think too much. I mean, the acting was something that was always a passion of mine. The first movie that I did was a PBS film called, it was part of a series of short films called Fotonovelas, and my episode was called A Fix. It was about a boxer who was at the end of his career, and he starts seeing these images of skulls, heads on people, which is saying that he's on his way out, and so in the whole movie, he's going back to his wife, his ex-wife. He's going back to his dad to say sorry. He's trying to make amends for his life. And, you know, just about 2 weeks ago, I had one of those old Beta giant monster big tapes, and I had it, you know, put into a DVD. And I watched that episode, and I was almost actually I was in tears, because when I did it, I just did it. I felt it, and I just did it. And it was wonderful to not be so heady and want, oh, I gotta do this moment, I'm gonna win this Oscar. No, just be honest. And that's, I said, just be an honest actor. So, was it hard? No. It got harder later on when people start asking you for autographs. There's a lot to this. People start taking your pictures at supermarkets. I was holding toilet paper one day, and I was on a TV show on Lifetime, and the woman was like, wow, you were great. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I got this toilet paper in my hand. Can I buy toilet paper, please? So it got weird, because then I felt I must be brilliant if people are loving me, and nah, that's not love. That's just, you know, somebody who recognizes you. That's all that is. Yeah.
Did you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to just add one thing. One of the greatest directing bits that I ever saw, I was watching television years ago, and there was one of the most famous actors probably in the 1950s was an actor named Tony Curtis, just recently died. But Tony Curtis and Burt Lancaster were, you know, really super famous. And anyway, he was interviewed, and he said, they asked him, what is the best piece of directing that you ever got? He said, well, when I first started out, I was in a play in New York, and I was so excited because they gave me a line. I was a bellhop, and my line was, here's your telegram, sir. He said, I spent 3 days, here's your telegram, sir. Here's your telegram, sir. Here's your telegram. He said, and I had done it 5,000 times. And I get to the set, I'm about to do my line, and the director comes up and says, hey kid, all you want is a tip. That was his direction. It didn't come across. In other words, the motivation for here's your telegram, sir, is I want to say, so the guy will give me a tip when I give it to him.
Oh, we did, sorry. Thank you for
I'm
that.
glad I wasn't the director.
Next question. I think this one is for Beverly. Do women have the same opportunities in getting jobs in this industry? And if, how is it different? I'm assuming that's for Beverly, so I direct it to Beverly.
Anyway, you guys want to answer? I'd like to hear your opinion. Sexism still exists, but there are many opportunities for women, and you know. But you look at the companies, you look at the studios, and you see that there are not that many women in the executive ranks. There are not that many women who can greenlight a film, meaning that, you know, they're in a position where they can say to Steve or Jose, yeah, we'll make your project. But it's improving an awful lot. There are some fields in the entertainment industry that are dominated, or where women are very prominent. Costume designers, even though there are a lot of famous male costume designers. The Directors Guild does studies quarterly about the number of jobs that go to women directors, minority directors, and it's pretty paltry. It's still very bad. So things are getting better. The industry's changing a lot. Now people can kind of make their own films. It doesn't take that much money to make a film. It might take a lot of money to get it distributed and get it publicized. So folks have more control and you're not kind of beholden to somebody else to greenlight your project or, or hire you for a position. But there is still quite a bit, there's a lot of work to be done.
I agree. I think both in women and minorities, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. When I started directing, there were no female directors in television. There were only assistant directors. There were at ABC, where I started, there was two. And one was on Lawrence Welk, another was on Mike Wallace interview show or something. And over the years, I've had three assistants of mine who become directors. One directed Jay Leno, in fact, replaced by another assistant director woman who directed Jay as well. But I think every time I keep reading Directors Guild memos and research and what have you, there's a super lax of hiring when it comes to minority actors and women in general. So I don't think it's improved by leaps and bounds. I think it's incrementally gone slowly.
It's slowly getting better. Something amazing that I guess being in the business, what I realize is that there's a lot more roles for women than men in film and TV. And I'm so happy to say that. My mom's an actress in New York, and I'm so happy to talk to her because there's been years where I've just been working, and she hasn't really been working much. And this year it flipped around. This year she's working. She's on working on TV. She had to turn down the latest Keanu Reeves movie. So for a woman, and then a woman Latina, and then a woman over 50, that's like the triple whammy. And she just went and she went, bam, I'm working now, what? That kind of thing. So more power to her, But is there room for improvement? Oh, yes. Yes. Do I get mad about it? Yes. But I keep going and do the best I can. And I'm starting to create my own work. Because I'm not going to sit on the side waiting. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. So
I think a great example is, you do see a tremendous mix on the Grammys and the American Music Awards. You don't see it on the Oscars, the Emmys, the Tonys. I mean, those kind of award shows is still kind of a light play.
I was Rick Hart was unfortunately not here with us tonight, but I think if you read the program, he's a comedian, but he used to write for In Living Color. And so he's working tonight, so he couldn't be with us. But he had said, as a comedian, but it was very it was just one of those things that hit you, because, he works on the CBS lot, because he works for CBS Diversity Showcase. Every year they do a diversity showcase. And he has directed that showcase the last 7 years. And he had said to me, Jamila, I'm on the CBS lot. He goes, and I think that I'm only one of two Latinos I think I've seen all day long. He goes, and think about it, we're in Los Angeles. He goes, we're in Los Angeles and you can't find two Latinos? And so he said it in a jokingly way, but then when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, this CBS lot is, you're like, right, you're in Los Angeles. You can't find any Latinos in Los Angeles. But he was making a point about, directing a diversity showcase where they're bringing in some people of diverse backgrounds, but that he was like maybe one of two Latinos he saw in any type of leadership position on the CBS lot, like that entire time that they were putting that show together. And I thought, wow.
When I did Elvis, it was interesting because I just followed the Tula Belafonte incident. And on Elvis, I used two choreographers, one black, one Puerto Rican. Elvis was backed by the Blossoms, which were three black background singers. The entire show was integrated, Latinos, blacks, whatever. And not one negative letter was ever shown to me or I received. I received negative letters on my shows a lot of times. But I found it really interesting because of Elvis. Anything he did was okay with that Elvis world.
Next question is, do you ever reach a point where you wanted to throw in the towel and quit for good? What stopped you? Any one of you want to answer that?
Never for me. I mean, I love what I do, and in fact, everybody keeps saying, when are you going to retire? And I said, I'm never going to retire. And I think even though we have the biggest problem we face in the industry today, we have 400 television channels on our sets and everything, controlled and owned by 5 to 4 corporations. We have been taken over by a corporate mentality and world. Everything we see, hear, I mean, just thank God we're keeping, at least for the time being, the internet open, because everything else is controlled, even the news shows that we watch. When I watch news, watch foreign European news or Asian. It's a real tragedy, and the public hasn't woken up to this as yet. There's a major merger going on between Comcast and Time Warner. Stop it.
I think the fact that I'm actually thinking about it right now, thinking about that question, there's been moments where I wanted to throw in the towel, but then I think about something I've done. I think the project of me helping the kids has really helped me find the love for what I do. I look at it in a different way. I'm a different actor because of the work that I've done with the kids. So, I would never leave the business, but there was a time where I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And if it wasn't for that project, working with the youth from orphanages, I probably would have thrown in the towel a while back. But they were like, why would you love doing this? Why would you stop doing it? Of course, they didn't know the business side of it. They didn't know that, there wasn't that many roles for Latinos at one point. I had gotten tired of it. I would show up to do a TV show, and it became work. I'd be sitting in the trailer, and I'm like, I used to love this. Like in the beginning, like the first movie I told you that I did, I was like, whoa, but something happened. And then I found that I can use this to help others, and now I will never throw in the towel. Even if I have to do a play down the block with three people in the audience. Even if I do an indie film, I'll always do this.
Would you have to bring back Ricky the Roach?
I'll do Ricky the Roach. I'll do Ricky the Roach. Why not? Hey, that's a good idea. I mean, I'll make the indie film version of that.
Sorry.
You asked for it. Right here. Buy your tickets. It's all good. Just love what you do,
Okay, next question. Discuss the challenges of the new entertainment business. Less gatekeepers, inexpensive production tools, etc., but also less money.
Not less money, no money. I think it's, my outlet, like Jose, is I've been teaching for years. I love it because I can shut the outside world out for 3 or 4 hours once a week and just think about the students. And it's great healing for me. I mean, as I tell my students, I get more out of this probably than you do. But I think there are no excuses now. Before it used to be, unless you got a grant or you had a rich uncle or parents or whatever, you couldn't afford to make a student film. Now anybody can make a professional, air quality product because the hardware is so cheap and inexpensive. So there are no excuses not to do it. If you've got that passion, do it. Now how to get it shown? Well, in the beginning, to get attention to yourself, give it away. Don't expect to make $1 million or whatever. I mean, even a PBS today, they want you to spend 6 figures before and then they won't pay you for doing it just to get broadcast time, unless you're a major star. Most of these are leaders to sell DVDs, and trust me, there is no more DVD market. They're going out of business. Everything, unfortunately, everything's out of the box now, and everybody's smart enough to know how to get everything, their music, their shows, all for free. So they have to reinvent the industry right now. The best way, and I'm hoping, is through the internet. It's giving opportunities to get, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hits if you've got something to say. That leads to success. That leads to the studios even to want to be involved with you. But it's a whole new world. And I remember years ago, the president of Moorpark College, who happens to be a friend of mine, because he was the president of one of the biggest companies, hardware companies in the United States, Polygraph. And he is considered the dean or the father of the CD when he was at Polygraph. And he brought a bunch of us in those days. He brought a lot of producers and directors in to meet the future. And on this panel, they had like all the major telephone company executives from Verizon, AT&T, et cetera. And we're all sitting there, and they're kind of, the opening speech is, you guys are in the catbird seat because you're going to make a ton of money when this new internet opens up, and so forth and so on. And one of the executives from the phone company came up and said, I hate to say this, but if you're over 5 years old, you won't understand anything we're telling you today. And he was honest. I mean, I think that's, I think any student who goes to school and says, I'm going to graduate and become a director, a producer, a writer, is unreasonable. I recommend my students zero in on the kind of work that you want to do. Get a job, being a gopher, washing their windows, whatever. Get with the people who are doing it, and sooner or later, you make relationships and you can move up the ladder within that company. But don't go in with high expectations, because they don't want you. They won't hire you. But if they go in and say, wow, we got this. I mean, when I hired gophers, I was executive producer on a series called Pee-wee's Playhouse. And it was not only a fun show, but it was a case where I had like 5 gophers who were running errands, all day long. I could tell in a day who the one, if there was one, who was going to make it in the industry, and the others were never going to make it, just by the attitude, the enthusiasm, the passion, the commitment to doing the job the best they possibly can. And that one that I picked is now a director. And he ran all his errands on his skateboard almost. And he was the fastest guy on the line.
Okay, thank you. Looking back, would any of the panelists do anything different? Would any of you do anything different?
Well, my mother said, when she heard I was going into show business, she said, well, at least you picked a profession where they both need patience. They're just spelled differently. And you need a lot of patience being a director, trust me. There's a booklet at the Guild, which they published, called, it's a pamphlet, I use it in all my classes, called, and I'm sure you can get access to it. I think the title is on what is a director. And it was written, it was a speech given at Weimar College by Ilya Kazan. And it's brilliant. I mean, it's a textbook on being a director. He over-exaggerates everything, but you don't have to be an expert in any one subject. You just have to know how to speak the language. Even though everybody's speaking English, art directors speak art language, costume people speak costume language, writers speak writers language, etc. You need to communicate with all these people and have a taste of what it is they do, so when they get in trouble, you can unblock them. And then you have to be a therapist and to Kazan, the most exciting thing to watch on television was a professional football game, because it shows the winners, the losers, it dissects anything and everything you need to show emotions. And as a director, you never direct what's written on the page ever. you're always directing the inner dialogue, because the key to drama is conflict. You don't have conflict, you don't have a story to tell.
I think what was the question again? There's something about if I would have had a
Looking
chance
back,
to do it again.
would you do anything
Do it
different?
different. I got to tell you that all of the doors that got slammed in my face actually really did help. I know it's not a little bit corny, but it really did help. I mean, I think of all the roles. There was one time where I was up for the antagonist role in a film called The Price of Glory. It was a big film that Latino cast, Jimmy Smits, and I remember. Oh, what's the name of the guy from the? Oh God, I'm so bad. The guy from the motorcycle, Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy?
No, the guy with the face.
Lorenzo Lamas.
Yeah, Roman was in it, and I thought, wow, I get to play, his right-hand man. And I even did the table read and everything, and I realized that everybody had signed their contracts but me. And I thought, what's up? And it turns out that the director wanted me, but the director was the director of the first film I had ever worked on. And the studio was, I think it was New Line, they wanted Paul Rodriguez. And Paul didn't want the role really, but they wanted him for the name. And I was so hurt at the last minute when I didn't get the role, and I thought, everybody was saying, one door opens, another one opens, and the window opens, whatever. And I almost moved back to New York, but I'm glad I didn't. And I ended up staying, and I ended up getting another film and then another TV show, and I had a much better experience. So, yeah, I mean, all of those, whatever I did, that's okay. If I had to do it again, I'll do that same route, let the door, down, the whole 9 yards. It's okay, I would do the same.
I don't, what I do differently is, first of all, I worked very, very, very hard. It wasn't easy, ever. I probably would work as hard, but maybe smarter. And I think the only other thing I'd change is to try to enjoy the process more. And to maybe step back from the day-to-day grind, because it can be very, very grinding, and try to appreciate the bigger picture of your place in the whole cog and or in the in the system, and try to appreciate it. But so I probably work a little differently than I did.
Okay, this one I can always read other people's writing, so I think I'm understanding this. The tabloids have a field day exposing the entertainment field's problems with substance abuse. Is this really as prevalent as they make it seem in the industry, in your opinions?
I'll start off because I don't know. Okay.
I've been lucky enough to be in the rock and roll business along the way in my career. And I brought Rick Springfield over from Australia when he was about 19. I discovered the Seals and Props. I had my own record label in the 1970s. Anytime you saw anyone like Dick Clark go on and say, sex, drugs, and rock and roll doesn't exist, he's lying. It's all all over the place. And I mean, I find it really offensive, to be honest with you, that it seems to be now okay for a lot of celebrities to go on national television and say, yeah, I smoke crack, yeah, I had a $50,000 a month cocaine habit and so forth, and never punished for any of this, even though they're blatantly admitting all of this stuff, etc. And there's a guy who smoked one joint who's in federal penitentiary for 10 years or something like that. I mean, I just think our values are screwed up. And I think in my personal experience in television and film, I didn't, even though I know it went on, I'd even been to parties where there was cocaine in dishes sitting on the dining room tables or whatever. It never, first of all, I'm always accused of being totally naive, but I went through the 60s in heavy duty rock and roll, and never got into drugs, ever. Had lots of it offered to me, but I never, always wanted to be in control of my own senses. But it goes on, and I think it's, I know that it's not shocking when you read the Beatles felt a lot of their creativity came from, drugs. A lot of artists feel that way, etc. But when it comes to the people I work with, the crews, and the people behind the scenes, I just didn't find it prevalent. I just really didn't. Everybody seemed to be, wide awake and on the ball. And, at least in my personal experience, I can't speak outside of my own world.
Well, I got to tell you that I think it was like I think it was like 2002, 3. I was working on a TV show, and the girl who was a well-known actress, she was pretty young. She was so coked up in with the hair and makeup. And I remember looking at her, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to be in this episode with her, and she's going to really screw it up. She's going to look all coked up. They're going to cut her out. The story's going to look really weird. And then I saw the episode, and first of all, she was such a mean person. To be so young and be so, I remember thinking, you're so coked up and you're just so mean. She was mean to the woman doing her hair. I listened to it, and of course, she was the series writer, and I didn't want to say anything. I was just guest starring one episode. When I saw the episode, she looked fine. And I really wanted her to look really messed up so that they can, say, oh, you're fired, do your contract and you're done. She looked fine. And then when stuff started changing for me, and then I'd been to the parties with the coffee table, the glass coffee table and all that, and because of traffic, I was invited to these parties. Celebrities had my number, and I don't know how they got my number, but they called me, invited me to these parties in the Hollywood Hills, and I had these friends, and it was just interesting because they were caught up into this, and it does happen. And maybe some of it even happens more than what you read about. But, little Disney stars, I wouldn't be surprised if they've got their little thing going on. But it happens. They got those blue drops that they put on in these eyes. You get them, the studios have them. If they come in from France, you put the blue drops, boom, your eyes are white, and you're like, they go to work. It's amazing. But, it is what it is,
I have a funny story. In 1977, I produced and directed a 2-hour CBS primetime special. My partner was Rolling Stone magazine, Jan Winter, the editor. And Jan, I didn't even have to do a presentation. The president of CBS said, "What's your next project?" And I said, "I'm talking to Jan Winter about it." It was a Rolling Stone 10th anniversary. He said, "I'll buy it, don't go anywhere else." And he did. And Jan flew in from New York, where he was headquartered. And he had a list of everybody he wanted to see on the show. And the premise of doing the show was that Rolling Stone was so powerful among celebrities who all wanted their front cover, their picture on the front cover of the magazine, that I thought it was going to be no problem. And so Jan gave me a letter, and one of them happened to be Mick Jagger. And so, because I'd done the family show, I flew to New York to meet with Mick. And he said, after keeping me waiting for about an hour in his apartment and being entertained by his daughter Jasmine, who was about 9 years old at the time, he comes in and he said, "What's this about, Steve?" And I said, "It's about doing the Rolling Stone special I'm doing." He said, "For Jan Winter?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Fuck him, I would never do the show." And that turned out to be everybody that on his list said the same thing. We love getting drugs from him. We don't want to do his show.
So he gave you a list of people that didn't want to work with him.
Exactly. But he probably thought they did. So the great story is that you all see the Woody Allen film, forget the name of it, but where he puts a line of coke down on a table or something like that, and he blows it in the guy's face. I forget what the movie was. But anyway, Jan, who at that time at least, and I think at the time he was probably the most turning 40, and comes in my office, and I made the huge mistake of guaranteeing him a limousine with the driver the entire time he went to LA. That turned out to be the biggest financial item on our entire budget. And he comes in, and I'm at CBS in Fairfax, Beverly. He walks into my office, he goes, "Steve, I got to talk to you about something." And he started putting a line on my desk. This could be the end of my whole career. I mean, period. No discussion. I'm at CBS, and he's doing lines on my desk. I just got up and I said, "Excuse me." Blew it all into his face. To this day, I've never spoken to Jan. But we had to, and we ended up with Steve Martin and Bette Midler, and one of the great numbers I ever shot, which you only seen at one time, was Art Garfunkel singing "Bridge Over Troubled Water" with Back, Snipe, and Pips. Phenomenal. And I met Jerry Lee Lewis with Bette singing "Great Balls of Fire." But you know, we had a great time doing the special, but we had to build it from scratch because he was zero help, you know. But I got a kick out of it. To this day, I've never ever spoken to him since that moment.
Wow. So Steve, you mentioned earlier that you brought Rick Springfield over to the U.S.?
Yeah, I had a company, a record company in Australia. Basically, although we signed him to Capitol Records when he first came over here, his real name is Richard Springthorpe, and he was actually a backup singer to a teenage band where they all wore pink. And I, at the time, had an Australian partner, Robbie Ford, who was a huge star in Australia. And Robbie and I had a record company called Wizard Records in Australia, and he was one of the first signings we made. We brought him over to, and it's a long story. Rick had 2 careers before he broke, actually. If it weren't for him losing his Australian accent, getting the soap opera, and becoming an actor in a soap, his career probably would have never happened. And on spec, a guy that owned a recording studio took him on as his new manager. And that's when he recorded Jesse's Girl and Broke. But up till then, he was having a lot of difficulty because he couldn't reach his audience. You know, he looked like a teen idol, but he wanted to play guitar like Black Sabbath, and the audience didn't accept it.
This last question, and I know if folks have more after that, we have some time. I'm going to read it, but I'm not sure if it may be for the panelists or if it's just asking a question about what they would think. The college has a small soundstage production room on campus. How can the college use this resource to help train students to move into jobs in the entertainment industry?
I taught at USC for years, and they have these incredible sound stages donated by George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, etc. I never got on the stage. I think until the end of my teaching there, it was always in a classroom. But hands-on experience is great with students. I've done that at Columbia College in Hollywood. I've done it at Loyola. But the problem is the students all want to be the technical director, the camera crew, the audio. And I'm saying, when you're a director, if this is a directing course, you hire those people. You're not one of them, so to speak. But we used an all-student crew and rotated it. But you know, it's interesting because when I would say to the students, we're going to do scenes, so pick a play or a movie or a TV show or something, get a script and bring me the sides that you want to direct. And for sure, and I never told them not to, but they would bring in the whole script, 25 pages, etc. And I'd laugh because I'd say, we'll be lucky in a 4-hour session to get through 2 pages. They could never believe it, you know, when you start stage directing the acting when it comes and then setting up the blocking in order to shoot. So hands-on does work, and it would, if you've got the facility, I don't know if it's equipped or anything, but there are a lot of companies that actually donate equipment to colleges and universities, and it'd be a great experience if that's lacking.
There's some, yeah, definitely something about it. If you guys have cameras, and yeah, use those sound stages. I mean, anybody who wants to be an actor here? Who's studying acting? Who's studying directing?
Wait, do you have some folks scared to put their hands up?
Who wants to be a doctor?
All right, well, you know, whatever you guys are studying, I recommend you guys taking dramatic arts classes. You know, I really honestly do recommend theater classes because it's going to help you speak in front of people. It's going to help you if you want to be an attorney. You'll give a great closing speech. If you want to sell irons, you know, you'll be able to, you know, put an iron and sell an iron, sell a box of irons, 12 irons. But yeah, I mean, and with this, yeah, just see what you look like in front of the camera. Getting used to your voice, getting used to what you sound like, looking at yourself, and you know, as long as you're doing a scene or something. But yeah, you know, I'm just curious who asked that question.
I don't know. I don't know.
Anonymous. Oh.
Because, yes, so we have an
The college president asked the question.
All right, that's what I'm talking about.
Because we actually do have this room that can be a good resource to develop.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We partner with our local public access station.
I mean, that would be great. You have so many professions, like, you know, so many professions that are tied into that can actually work in there, I think, right? In a production, maybe a little radio show out of there, a little local TV show out of there, or something, you know, for sure.
Do they have that at Oxnard College?
Yes.
Oxnard as well as, yeah, sure, we have the room, we just have.
I thought, but you're a public broadcasting outlet, or a public access outlet.
Well, we have our own TV station that we're potentially going to partner with the city to.
Got it. Great.
Well, I'll ask the question because it hasn't been asked. If any of you would ever like to come back and do a little guest lecture for our students, or work with some of our students, or just come hang out with some of our students, like would be more than happy. Am I begging yet?
You're not going to like hearing this, but when I first moved to Oxnard, I actually applied to teach here, and I was turned down.
I'm actually not surprised to hear that. Sorry. But you know what? We're looking for folks, Steve. Let's talk. We're looking for people. You know, I think there's opportunity. Yes.
A question for Steve, actually. Your job as a director, to me, having worked in the business myself, it's one of those wonderfully sort of nebulous skill sets that are all-encompassing, yet very hard to nail down with specific elements of that job. The analogy in music as a producer, you kind of know everything, but you don't know anything specifically, but you kind of have this overall sense. How did you develop that, what I would sort of lovingly call sort of a nebulous skill set of viewing the entire thing and knowing the vision and the direction?
I made a lot of rules for myself when I first got into business and started directing. One of the rules was I'd read where Billy Wilder never allowed anyone on his sets other than the people working because he didn't want anybody on the outside knowing he didn't know anything when he was directing. My thing was I would always gather the crew on the first day and welcome them to any suggestions that they have. I would not shut them out. A lot of directors do. They don't want to hear from anyone. Just come in and say, this is the way we do it. The sort of Otto Preminger philosophy. I was the opposite. I welcomed any kind of input from anybody. But with that said, I wanted them all to know that they don't get to make any decisions. They can feed me the information welcome it when I make the final decision. I always felt, because I've observed other sets, especially when I was doing the Emmys, because we visit all the different sets to build the opening numbers sometimes. And I'd say, I don't want anybody trying to protect me. If I make the wrong decision, and we have all of you 100% making the wrong decision, it will come out right somehow. Where we'll fail is if half of you are going one direction and the other half of you are going another direction, then it's chaos. And I've stuck to that. I mean, everybody, and you try and build a family behind the scenes where you try and work with the same people that you really enjoy working with, and you think they're real talented, sort of, just like directors have favorite actors they like to work with and so forth. And I found one of my best cameramen couldn't shut up. He couldn't take yes for an answer. So he would constantly be in my ear, how about doing this? How about doing that? How about, et cetera. And I eventually had to cut it because, I said, back off, I think you're incredibly creative. But on the other hand, you're taking away the focus from what's really important. I mean, with all the monitors, and the hardest job I ever had, I directed Diana Ross at halftime in the Super Bowl 30. And we flew a helicopter into the arena in Arizona. And that was a big deal unto itself. Michael Jackson tried to do it, and the FAA turned him down, and then we got him to say yes this year. But it was, when I walked into a sports control room, I was looking at, if you could focus and say, the middle section of the wall behind us was wall-to-wall monitors. There had to be 100 monitors up there. And you've got to be really trained to know which pictures you're looking for in live, instant calling shots, etc. So I would go up to the hotel room where I was staying, and I was driving the maids crazy because I would take 8x10 blank papers and recreate the control room monitors in my hotel room with Scotch tape and 8x10 papers. And then I would single out the cameras that I was using. And I was using like 15 cameras out of 100. And so it really is a case of doing your homework, having a good, strong voice, so you are, when people walk on the sound stage and they hear this voice of God coming from the rafters, etc. It doesn't hurt to have a commanding voice coming out, where, it's not question mark at the end of what you're saying. It's, this is where we're doing it, this is where we're going, etc. And it's a whole other ballgame when you're working with actors. And most television directors, especially in live, hide from actors in the control room. And they just want to know the technical, they don't want to know the scene or working. My control rooms have always been on the stage next to the actors. I let my associate director direct the control room or relay the instructions. And I work with the monitors. They build me a little configuration on the stage because actors love that reassurance that you like what they're doing, and they want instant. They don't want to relay to third parties of what you want. So, from a directing standpoint, I think we do get the privilege of being the decision maker. And every actor I've worked with, especially if they're stars, you can be prepared the first day on the set of having a confrontation who has more power, the actor or the director. And in the beginning, when you have no credibility at all, you're at the mercy of an actor who knows you have no credibility. As the years go by and you build a reputation, they start to listen to you a whole lot more and what you're input, etc. But I don't try and direct from day one. I try to hold off. Let's see what the actor brings to me. When they're open for critique and suggestions, that's when I'll suggest things. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. Very confident.
All right, I think we're almost at 8 o'clock, so I just have one last question, and that's because it's current, and I was listening to NPR on my way over. I would just love to hear your thoughts about this whole Sony thing, hacking and breaking in of emails and taking, films and releasing them ahead of time. There's, Seth Rogen had wrote the film about Korea, and now Sony Pictures is being hacked and emails are everywhere. This is really kind of odd and awkward. I don't know, do you think this is do we see like some sort of liability insurance for this in the future? In the entertainment industry, actors and actresses and creative art just seems to kind of be held hostage.
Well, like everything else, my opinion is, first of all, Sony knew the risk they were taking going in. They had meetings actually discussing it, whether North Korea would react to their, dictator being assassinated in a fictitious movie. But you can't ever avoid theft. We get right now what are called screeners. And we get all the Academy nominated films in advance. And at the beginning, each of the discs that we get sent through FedEx, UPS, the mail, etc., our names are coded onto the disc. If we're caught loaning the disc, making people pay to see the screen, whatever, it's a $500,000 fine, and you could go to jail for 5 years. And they're sending these screeners all over. LA, New York, wherever there's a guild or a Academy member. I think it's impossible that these aren't being given to their families and friends and so forth and so on. But I'll tell you, they will enforce it. Every time that disc is out of your possession, you are at risk of having the federal government knock on your door. And they're not going to compromise on these penalties. In my opinion, it's only going to get worse. But even the labs, I want to do a film 30 years ago or so, I was developing it at the time, of somebody stealing a print at a 35 millimeter Technicolor or developing lab and holding it for ransom after it's finished. We never made the film or developed it, but where there's a way a thief can steal something, believe me, they're going to figure out how to do it. And I think Sony is it's horrible that it's happening, but I don't think there was a way in hell that they could stop it once it was out there.
If there are no other comments, I'll let each of the panelists say any last comments as we close out. Beverly?
Well, I just say for the students here that you're in a very enviable position because the world is open to you, and you should, follow your passion and be persistent, and your success will come in the form of the journey, and that's it. That's it. But you're in an enviable position. It's great to be your age and at the start of your career.
Steve?
It's great to be your age if you're young. But I think it's unrealistic to not realize how difficult it is to break into anything. I don't care what profession you choose. I can't emphasize enough, be willing to start at the bottom and work your way up. If you've got talent and stick to it in this and passion, sooner or later opportunity will come. I got the job, which I found out, going from the mailroom in just literally weeks into being a director, only because everybody else who was on the list ahead of me was afraid to say, I want the job. And when I walked in, I was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and saying, yeah, give it to me. What's going to happen if I fail? I go back pumping gas at my dad's gas station. I mean, I had nothing to lose. So take risks. And I think the most important thing is be honest. I can't tell you, when I started directing, I didn't pretend I knew anything. I told everybody, help me, I don't know anything. And all these people reached out to me and helped me. I mean, I was sitting in a control room with a technical director who's like 50 years old, that, and I thought he was an old man, you know. And he's critiquing people on the set as that young punk, that, you know, I mean, who do they think they are, et cetera, et cetera. And I had reached the point where he forgot how old I was. I mean, he just completely accepted me as one of the crew. I'd walked on the sets. I got to direct a couple of Gilligan's Island, and my manager insisted I do them when Mosquitoes, a rock band, comes to Gilligan. And he said, if nothing else, you work with a great cinematographer, you'll learn 35mm film. He was absolutely right. I mean, those people, even though I was arrogant enough to say the show is crap, I shouldn't be doing this, you know, I loved it. And those people were proud of what they did. The cinematographer went on to do Dynasty right after Gilligan's Island, et cetera. And taught me tons of stuff about camera lenses and what have you. There isn't a show I work on to this day where I don't learn something from somebody that I never met before. You don't ever reach the point where you say, you know, I'm old enough and experienced enough that I know it all. You don't.
Thank you, Jose.
You know, that was my favorite episode. Thanks. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I'm 50, and you were talking about you guys being, you know, young, studying, and you know, those who are coming back. You know, I wish I would have been your age and know what I know now. But you guys are going to learn it. You're going to learn it, and just be open to new things. If you start studying something and then it doesn't click for you, it's okay to try something different. I started acting in film and TV. I think I was in my 30s, my early 30s. And so, yeah, just be ready, be open, and be ready to shift gears, and it's okay to try something new and just learn it and study it, and whatever you do, just know that somebody's watching. You know, it could be your little brother, your little sister, your neighbor's son or daughter, and it could be the neighbor's son that lives down the block and just looks in awe at you. So just know that somebody's watching you, and you can be a good role model somehow. And if ever there's an opportunity to give back in any way, there's so many ways to do it. Whether it be from going to a senior citizen home and maybe reading to them, or maybe just going someplace and helping out someone. I mean, there's always something to do. Always. There's a lot of causes. Save the whales, save this, save that. So, yeah, that and that's it.
I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their time. This wraps up 3 years because we started at Oxnard and ending out at Ventura. So I want to thank once again Ventura College for hosting Dr. Gillespie and his staff for helping us pull all this together. And I can thank obviously our students for coming out and hearing some great information. I know I'm sure the panelists will be willing to answer more questions. Maybe you didn't want to put one forward, but we'll be here for a little bit wrapping up. And I know Jose has a Facebook page and people talk, and so if you want to communicate or ask questions, please feel free. But thank you all for coming out.